icing on the cake. So I like this part because I like cake too. I like icing, I like flowers, I like all of it. Today we'll be working on a landscape painting together. The thing I love most about this type of landscape painting is that we're basically just using a limited palette and water to create a landscape that sort of just emerges underneath the paintbrush as we paint. So it's fun, it's easy, it's laid back, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Let's get painting. This one is so simple, it's really easy. You can actually just do it in a few minutes. And what I love about it is if you just have a break and you just want to relax and enjoy color, this is a really simple one. It's just a few basic tricks really, and then watching these colors sort of emerge under your paintbrush and create a landscape. So to get started, I've got all my supplies here. I've got tape so that I can just kind of mask off a little window for myself on my paper. This is 9x12 watercolor paper. You can use any size you want for this project. I have my palette, a rag, some clean water, a couple of brushes. I have my paint here. If you just have a pan set on hand, grab that. You should be able to make all of these colors from that as well. So grab your paints, grab your brushes, and let's get started. We're just gonna tape off our paper to start. So this is 9x12 paper. We're taping it off to a rough, kind of roughly 5x7. I love that size because it's so easy to frame. You can find a frame for this type of thing anywhere. And if you don't want to frame it that size, you can frame it larger and it already looks like it has a mat. We're just looking to kind of create like a smaller window to work from. So my tips for taping, and I've learned this the hard way many times, is if you're using very sticky masking tape, you just want to kind of stick it to your pants or your apron, whatever you can, and then just kind of get a little bit of that stickiness off. I'm using drafting tape, so I actually have the opposite problem. I have to really press it down. So now that we have our paper ready, I'm just gonna get the watercolor paint set up. Using that ultramarine blue, this is beautiful for sky. We have sap green. That'll come into play when we're painting our trees and the land in the front. I'm using yellow ochre, which is really a warm kind of earthy yellow. You can mix this, if you have a pan set, by adding just a tiny bit of purple to your yellow. It's a fun trick. And then I'm using a rusty red, which is just kind of almost like burnt sienna. It's very warm. So these are watercolor paints. Most often you'll see watercolor in the cake variety. Tube variety is fun too. It just mixes up a little differently, but they all do the exact same thing. They all dilute with water and you can control how much water you want to add to the pigment. When you're working along with me, just remember, you'll kind of get stronger and quicker with how you mix up your paint. Just take some time and get used to the dilution rate and just how it all works. Before you dive in with paint, just take a moment and decide where you want your horizon line. I want to have mine relatively high up, and that's really the only decision you need to make before you get started. If you place it lower, you'll get this big kind of grand sky. If you place it higher, you get this lovely kind of distance. So I'm going for distance today. So we're gonna place it up high. So to start, you wanna take your round brush and dip it in water. Tap off a little bit of your water because you don't want it to be sopping. And then we're just gonna kind of brush over the paper back and forth, missing some areas, right down to where we want that horizon line. So this is a really fun way to play with watercolor because if you go with the wet paint right onto a wet paper, you'll get this soft, beautiful shapes that just kind of fade away. And then you can try doing kind of a thicker, more potent paint right on a dry paper, and you'll get these beautiful crisp edges. So it's just really fun to kind of start learning what watercolor paint wants to do on the paper and just play with it and enjoy it. So we're just starting with the sky, one color, very easy. So we're gonna mix up a little bit of that ultramarine blue and some water. And we want it to be not really, really thick and loaded with color, but somewhere in the middle. So just grab a little bit, mix it up with water, and then starting at the top, we're just gonna kind of drag our paintbrush back and forth and just kind of accidentally missing some areas, which I like because I like that look of clouds kind of up high. And then I'm just gonna kind of go in with a really, really clean wet brush and just kind of sweep along the horizon line. And what I want to create is a little bit of a darker sky up top, fading to a lighter sky right at that kind of midpoint horizon line. And then while it's wet, we're gonna grab a little bit of that yellow ochre and mix it in with our ultramarine blue. And we're trying to create kind of like a earthy, sort of muted green color. I want it to feel like kind of distant trees. So then while you have that kind of wet sort of line right on your paper, you just wanna take your color and just tap it in. You're kind of creating these accidental distant tree shapes, and you'll see it will start to kind of bloom and blend. And then I'm going to do the same thing, just a little lower on the other side. And you can see that you have kind of a mix of watercolor kind of things happening here. You have these sort of trees that just kind of appear under your brush. And then you have a crisper line down low, which is nice because it kind of almost creates that shadow underneath the trees. And I'm really not looking for a perfect shape. I'm just kind of moving my brush around and just kind of creating general shapes here for this. All right, so you've got your sky. You've already got some trees sort of fading away in the distance. Now we are going to do the same thing we did for the sky, but we're going to do it in reverse for the land. We're grabbing a clean, sort of damp brush, tapping off our water so it's not too wet. And then we're just gonna kind of sweep the brush back and forth in sort of a crisscrossy pattern where we have the dry paper. Gonna grab a little bit of the green. And I like a really kind of yellowy, earthy landscape. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that yellow ochre. And I want my colors closer to me to be very vibrant. So I'm gonna start at the front and just kind of sweep back and forth, get a little more water. And as I go backward in space, I'm gonna add even more water and just kind of let it fade into the distance like that. If you put color to paper and you don't love it, it's fine. Just grab the color you like and you can go right on top. Or you can even grab a clean, wet brush, take most of the water out, and sort of scoop that color off the paper. A lot of times you'll end up with this really pretty layering effect between the colors anyway. So there's really no mistake. It's just more of a learning process. We've got a really beautiful base, and we're just gonna add a few kind of little pops of texture just to add one more element to this one. So I also like to add just a tiny bit of kind of earthy red into my landscapes too, because I think it plays nicely with the blue. So I'm just gonna kind of pop a few little dabs of that in here in the front and kind of moving away. And then I want to darken a few areas in the trees coming closer to me, because you'll notice when you're painting landscapes, as the colors go away, they get more muted and there's less of a contrast between dark and light. So I'm just gonna grab kind of a darker version of that murky green color and just adding a few little darks for contrast. And to finish this off with the last detail, I'm gonna add some grasses. So I'm just going to take that same brush, the tip of this larger round brush, and mix up kind of a dark green. So I'm just gonna take the tip and just kind of up from the corner. And you'll notice some of it's dry and some of it's kind of mixing in to the wet paint, which I like. I like that look because it all kind of marries together. For the very last minute details, I like to have a crisp, dry painting and go right into that. I like to add a few little flowers to these grasses in the front, and that just gives that added dimension that makes this painting really fun. So we'll take a few minutes, let this dry, and then we're gonna dive in with a few last minute details. You can tell that your painting is dry when you kind of hold it up under the light and there's no sheen anymore. And now you're ready to paint your final details. So we're just gonna grab a detail brush. I love adding kind of a rust color flower to the front of this one. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of that kind of rusty red and I'm just making this up. I don't even know what flower this is, but I'm just kind of tapping my brush and creating a little more definition in the front and a little punch of color as well. And you don't have to add this type of flower or this type of grass, but anytime you put something a little bit more vibrant and a little bit more crisp in the foreground of a painting that's a landscape like this, you're going to get that beautiful push and pull, that sort of pushing away of the sky and coming forward of this land in the front. All right, so you're done with your painting. You've got your sky, your distant trees, you got some detail in the front. And you know you're done when everything kind of feels like it works together. So the peeling of the tape, honestly, this is the fun part. It's like stepping out of your closet and getting ready to go out, and you're all done and everything's ready. So this is the final thing, the final touch. And you can see that all of a sudden, it goes from this fun kind of abstract look to something that almost already looks like it's a finished framed piece of art. So for mine, I chose to have a higher horizon line, and I love the way it turned out. You might have gone the direction of big sky, and those are so beautiful too. But I love this process because it's just a few steps. It's sky, trees, sweeping in some land and adding that detail. And every time you do it, you come up with something just a little bit different. So what I want you to do is take this project, feel free to experiment with it, try for a big sky, add a barn, add some fun details in the front, really play with it and make it your own.